Here is Lou Dobbs and Jason Chaffetz. Now, what is he doing these days?
He's on Fox.
Oh, is he a Fox News contributor?
Yeah, he resigned from the House before his term was up.
He resigned from the House before his term was up to get a job on Fox News. And here he is. Remember this guy was like, I can't vote. I can't look at my kids. Wasn't he the one who said, I can't look at my kids and vote for Donald Trump? Didn't he say that?
He's the reason we got Devin Nunes.
And so here he is, Jason Chaffetz, Fox News, talking to Lou Dobbs. And Lou Dobbs has a real issue, apparently, with the two-party system. Good to hear him speaking up. He'd rather go to a one party.
The president has the ability to do this. I don't think there shouldn't be too much legal question. That doesn't mean that the Democrats won't challenge.
There's a tremendous amount of legal question as to whether the president has the ability to just randomly call for a state of emergency. However, I appreciate Lou Dobbs making this point moot so that when President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says that for the sake of the health of the American people, we need to both create a single-payer healthcare system and also nationalize the oil refineries. That Lou will appreciate that she has every right and ability to do so. But let's go forward.
That doesn't mean that the Democrats won't challenge and try to obstruct as they have throughout his presidency. But I really believe that the way forward here is for him to declare a national emergency and simply sweep aside the recalcitrant left in this country. They have obstructed, resisted, and subverted for far too long. The American people don't need to put up with this, and the president needs to find a way forward here where he can deliver on this promise in advance of the 2020 presidential election. Because that means he will have fulfilled all of his major promises to the American people from the 2016 election. I think it's critically important.
I think the president will prevail. If he does it tonight or tomorrow or whatever it is, I will wholeheartedly support him. I do think they need to continue the daily drumbeat and make the case rather than have everybody say, oh, well, it's tied up in the courts and, in the coming months, we'll go ahead and see what happens. I don't want to give the Democrats that excuse.
It will be tied up in the courts, and not just by Democrats, but by landowners in Texas who don't want to give up their property for the sake of Donald Trump's pretend wall. But Chaffetz was the guy who withdrew his endorsement of Donald Trump because he couldn't look at his daughter in the eye. Apparently, his daughter, maybe he just doesn't look at his daughter anymore, or maybe she doesn't, talk to him anymore.
What was the thing that he was mad at Trump about?
I think that was after the grab him by the private part comment.
Yeah, so women are people, but immigrants, not so much.
Not so much.
There's a genuine split in conservative media on this, though, because Ben Shapiro was talking about yesterday how it would be really dumb for Trump to call, Trump's just going to call for a national emergency if he wants to have a momentary victory and just be able to blame the courts later, which is probably true. And you have other people like Dobbs that are just saying, yeah, go for it. Maybe because they want that to happen.
Well, I think Shapiro is afraid of the precedent that it will set. And because, look, it will set a precedent. It will set a precedent. I mean, he will not build this wall. The wall will not get built, particularly this way. Like, the $5 billion that would get earmarked for it, it would, they would start the construction maybe or the process. But in this instance, not a dollar will be expended because it will be tied up in courts immediately. And the question will never be resolved because it will still be in courts if the next unless Trump wins re-election. And then the next president will have a precedent to call for a national emergency at any time. And it may be for stuff. Now, there'll be lawsuits questioning that one. But here is Representative Mo Brooks, who is already worried about the precedent that could be set. Because look, if you're going to argue that a phenomena like people crossing the border, the southern border, right? Not the northern border, just the southern border, is problematic with no data to support this. Like, how could it be a crisis now and it hasn't been a crisis for years? How could there be a state of emergency now and there hasn't been one for years? And you're, like I say, you're opening yourself up to a lot of new precedents because, President Sanders or Warren or Biden or O'Rourke could say, we have a real crisis, and that is climate change. And we actually have data that suggests that, not that the number of people coming across the border is less than it was. We have rising sea temperatures faster than were earlier predicted. Just that's a story today. And Representative Mo Brooks, he seems to get like where this could be headed, and that is the problem.
Judgment where we should not be going into Syria for the purpose of regime change, which was the stated purpose of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama at various times.
You're talking about Syria now.
Issuing work permits to illegal aliens in the United States of America when the statute clearly says you can't do it.
Let me go back to this matter of national security right now and the president's determination of what is an emergency or not. Say 5 years from now there's a hurricane, a vast hurricane, and there's a Democratic president who believes that climate change was involved with the hurricane. Thousands of people die from it. Could that president, he or she, then say he needs a national emergency declaration to get money to fight that?
I'm sorry, that was kind of convoluted the way I heard it.
The fact of the matter is that the whole argument is convoluted for a National Emergency Act for wall funding also. What I'm saying is if a president can make the claim that national security money, emergency money is needed for a wall, could a president at one point say it's needed to fight climate change?
I would have to look at the specific statutes to see what you can and cannot do. That is so far out there.
Why? If it's a matter of national security, if it is a matter of national security and the president deems it so, why is it outside the purview of the law?
I don't see how that example that you gave affects the national security of the United States of America.
The Pentagon and the intelligence services often talk about the effect of climate change. I'm making a hypothetical argument here.
In this instance, we're talking about protecting the southern border. Any nation to exist has borders. And the primary function of a nation with respect to those borders is to secure them. So that is a matter of national security by definition.
For instance, U.S. News, August 1st, 2017. National security and defense officials are recognizing climate change as a threat it is. This has been going on actually for years before this. But the military has been listing climate change as an increasing national security threat. In fact, I think it's like close to number one. And the best is watching Mo Brooks's eyes shoot up into the back of his head where he's like, oh, God, how did we not prepare for this question? I mean, he's genuinely stumped. I mean, so in some respect, look, there is value here to set this precedent because
it's like the filibuster.
Well, President Bernie Sanders could very well say, we have a climate change national security. I am taking money. 1/3 of the military budget, 1/2, 3/4. And we're going to fight climate change with that. And there's nothing you can do based upon the Trump precedent, the Republican precedent.
I totally have the right.
It'd be even cooler if I thought the Democrats would ever do that.
Well, yes. I mean, who knows? Again, there would be lawsuits and whatnot, but it would be cooler. It would be great. I don't know that Donald Trump is going to do what he's going to do either, but Fun to watch Congressman Mo Brooks, like all of a sudden, in real time, realize like, oh boy, I left the paddle. I left the paddle in the truck. I'm up the creek now. I've got a real problem.